Alright, halfway through the holiday video. More than halfway. So I feel I better do a response. This is probably going to be a long video, maybe, possibly. But I think it's a useful conversation. So far we're kept it within boundaries. And in terms of hostility or insults. And so we can, it seems to be adequate. Satisfactory. I'm starting to, his style is growing on me. It's methodical and slow, but eventually it gets to a point that I can say something to or respond to. So I did take notes. Very crudely done, mapping. I like this idea of mapping things, doing little boxes and circles and connecting them. So I'm even doing that with the word life. He has a whole elaborate schema for the word justice in the center, and my first reaction to it was, no, it's not even close. Justice isn't even something you can have. It's not even a very useful word, to tell you the truth. It's a nice dream, it's a nice ambition, but you can't make it out of anything. It's kind of impossible. And the word should really be something like solution, or should, or ought, right? Philosophers hate that word ought. But yeah, that's what we're really trying to resolve. What's the ought in this whole scheme that we're involved in? What ought we do? I could say that. What ought I do right now? What ought I do this week? What I ought to do with my life? That's the important question. And I would think obviously justice is going to be part of your ought obligation. What should be accomplished through your existence is somehow manifesting somewhere in the product of your existence that you did justice, that you were fair, that you were decent, that you were productive, which is a bigger word, a more important word to me. But bottom line is we're still talking about a problem, and we're trying to resolve it with a solution. The problem is gaining your satisfaction at acceptable collateral damage. And if you want to maximize your efficiency, there's instructions in the Bible even, don't get a wife and don't do this, just serve God, blah, blah, blah. And yes, there's ways to maximize the efficiency of your existence, to get the most out of yourself, out of your functionality. And the real game here is just to, you want to solve a problem, prevent it. Yeah, it's really, that is the game. Don't cause one. You want to fix it? Don't break it. There. That's the easiest way. The easiest way to solve a problem. Don't make it. Anyway, so he started off, again, I just, if I've been offensive, apologies, and we'll just concede that sometimes you're going to say things that we're going to not like the way the guy said it, and we'll accept some of that. Some of it. But there's going to be a point, I think, where it's going to go beyond acceptable limits, but we'll see. Alright, so, yeah, they talked a little bit about this fairness word, and again, like in his schema, the word, the economy thing, he did mention it in the video, which I thought was really good, but in his schema, in his diagram, it's not really very well drawn out, and to me it's a really big part of practical fairness in the practical world. Now, in an absolute sense, I don't know if this is an important word, because in the end, basically the point being made is the right thing to do is to stop playing the game. So whether we play fairness seems kind of, it's too late to worry about waxing the car, because the point is we're decommissioning the thing. But anyway. Alright, so on the politics issue, which is sort of interesting, he sort of has this impression that I'm for some sort of elitist government, and I'm not for an elitist government by dictatorship. So I guess that would be, as long as that's understood, okay? I'm not for dictatorship. I'm for an accountable representative democracy. I think direct democracy is totally corrosive to writing rational law, because people are self-interested and stupid, and they keep voting for the simple solution, not the best solution. They want the cheapest, crappiest, cruddiest, Walmart-made piece of shit, rather than actually doing it right the first time, so we don't have to keep doing it over and over and over again. So that would be my argument, that I want system designers that have some knowledge of this idea of a long-term interest versus short-term interest, and this idea of efficiency over time, and how you can save money by making it right once, by doing it right the first time, and all of that kind of logic. Like when you're an architect, you don't make disposable buildings. It's not very smart. So anyway, you might make them upgradable. Maybe you can add attachments, right? But no, you don't want to make it fail. So you want to have a durable foundation at minimum. So to go into it. But anyway, so that's really the argument. I'm for a representative democracy, and I'd like the representatives to be something other than pretty, or fast talking, or baby kissers. And so we went through a whole conversation about my ideas versus instant runoff voting, and getting rid of the geographic bias that I think is totally corrosive to our democracy, because our ideology isn't representative, our geography is, and there's no need to have winner-take-all elections for the legislative branches of government, any legislative body. They should be representative bodies, not winner-take-all, same majority wins every election bodies. That's just stupid to put the same people in the legislature and have them argue with each other. That's dumb. The idea is to put the diversity in the legislature and have that argue and decide law. So anyway, I don't really want to make this into that kind of video. I've done extensive videos on the subject of democracy, so I will reference that channel, and maybe I'll make more videos on that channel, but yeah, whatever the name of it is, IRV voting or something. So I don't want to get into that whole thing. But the important subject, I suppose, is this distinction between civil rights and civil responsibilities. I just think you have to consider that the civil responsibilities should be rewarded. People who are more civilly responsible, that have taken the time to understand legislation and understand what the candidates really stand for and what the parties really do in their real life activities and all that kind of shit, should be rewarded. And the people who don't pay any attention should concede their ignorance, okay, and concede that maybe sometimes they're not even qualified to pull the lever. That would be exercising responsibility. Whether we should make that law or something, whether we should have tests, or whether we should oblige people to know something, I'm not saying. I'm not saying it's something that should be urgent. I'm just saying it's not overtly offensive to me, the idea of having your vote, where you could make your vote a little more powerful. You could have 1.5 votes by doing civic duty, and your vote may be degraded. If you can't even answer a simple question on the ballot that says who's the current president. If you can't get that right, maybe you should only have a half a vote then. But anyway, my argument would be is that they should earn their position by showing character and competence and intelligence and specialization knowledge, and that they should be accountable, which means if they can't explain it to the people who voted for them, if they can't explain why they didn't give them everything they wanted, they're going to lose their job. So I'm all for accountability. They won't be in office and be able to be dictators or any of that kind of crap. They'd always have to face recall elections. I'm all for that kind of mechanism. So if people are really pissed off because they didn't do what he thought they were going to do, we should be able to kick them out really easy and get a new guy. You can call it elitism, but make sure you call it elitism with the qualifier that it's not elitism by dictatorship. Okay, it's not a dictatorship of elites. What I would like is for us all as citizens to say it'd be a good idea to elect our betters to run our world than our lessers. That would be the idea, is the people running things should be better than we are. Yeah, not more crooked. and not more proficient at kissing babies is their only talent. Looking good and being an excellent baby kisser. That really shouldn't earn you much. Shouldn't earn you a damn thing, actually. But anyway, I really want is a representative democracy, which we don't have, okay? I've never had a representative in Congress my entire life. I've lived in America for 50 years, and I've never had a representative. So that, in my opinion, is failure. There's no reason why we can't all win congressional elections. We all should get a representative. That's the way it should work. There's no reason to deny half the population their entitlement to representation in a Congress or a Senate. Those bodies should reflect all of America, not just the majority in selected districts. Okay, enough said on that subject, I think. All right, then you made a lot of this quality of sentience thing, sentient welfare, where I said, where I make this simple argument that a feeling is a feeling, a broken leg is a broken leg. I mean, generically. Obviously, there's super special cases, 1 in a million cases where some people have no sensation in their legs and it doesn't matter if you break it. But that's not what we're really talking about. I'm just basically saying that we're all functionally, generally speaking, of the human form, and we have a generic capacity to feel built into us through that formation, and there's no debatability. There's no logical way to undo the simple truth that it just doesn't matter who pays and who profits. They're just brains. Which brain is happy and which brain is sad doesn't matter. Doesn't have anything to do with this overall equation. All the pawns on the board are pawns. All the checkers are checkers. It doesn't matter which checker gets captured or which one gets knighted. It just doesn't matter. That's the purpose of that statement. That statement isn't implying that I think all people are entitled to the same rights, or all people are as functional as other people, or as useful as other people, as socially valuable as other people, are entitled. Okay, you lose entitlement by bad behavior. I think that's perfectly reasonable. Yeah. I'm just saying that there's obviously you have to have mechanisms in place that encourage people to do the right thing and not to do the wrong thing. And the only way those mechanisms can work is you do have to impose restrictions on rights and rewards based on the individuals who did the behavior. But if you don't do it to the individuals who did the behavior, then obviously it wouldn't work as deterrence, or it wouldn't work as encouragement. So to have encouragement and deterrence, you have to make things specific. But generically, on whole, on balance, yeah, it just doesn't matter. I mean, it's a tragedy that people have to suffer in a prison. That's a grotesque tragedy, that we have to have this circumstance to deter people from being complete assholes. It's a kind of a definition of failure, that it has to come to that. That people can't even raise their kids not to be sadistic, malicious monsters. Horribly abusive takers. That's pitiful, in my opinion. It's pitiful. Just more evidence of how failed the human race is, that it can, with such gross frequency, create rotten people. Yeah. So anyway, I don't know if I think that exhausts that subject for now. But anyway, yeah, I'm not saying that, your rights are not the same as the fact that you're fundamentally human does not mean that you're fundamentally allowed to do anything you want to do without any implications. Okay, so that's all. I'm just saying that your equality ends as soon as you start behaving. But there still is a fact that it doesn't matter who, like I said, it doesn't even matter if there's going to be a headache in the universe, and if it has no other function, it's, even if Adolf Hitler has the headache, it's still a headache, it's still suffering. It just doesn't matter what brain's doing the suffering, as a practical matter, in the end, in the net figuring of everything. But the point is when you're talking about how to get to the net, how to create the net outcome, you have to get to the net through this interaction of these human beings. And the fact is that you can attract them to good behavior and you can repulse them from bad behavior and create a net outcome that is better by doing that. So by treating them differently, you can have better outcomes. Yeah, 'cause that's so. I'm just saying that equality doesn't mean equality in treatment. It doesn't. I'm not saying they're entitled to the same treatment or that they should get the same treatment, whether they're entitled or not. As a practical matter, it's not good for the system to allow people. I think I even said something like that. Yeah, I don't know why I missed this whole section in the middle. It's self-interest versus system interest. So the collective interest, the self, is in competition with this self-interest. They're not the same thing. And if you want to have a good system, you have to put controls and limits on the self-interest and the corrupt and the malicious interest, the destructive interest. Okay, now that's enough. All right, moving on. Prime directive. That's another note from another video. Yeah. All right, black and white. You complained a little bit about the black and white kind of thinking or something, and the truth is, it's really simple. The truth is really simple. Okay, it's really diagram. It's going to be really simple. Simple in terms of the concept. It's an evolving molecule. There's certain circumstances dictating how it evolves and the rules, and there's just nothing to do with anything good in the game that's made by nature. And it's only by accident that we've been able to step, accident in the sense of an aberration of the usual effects of the natural function, which is just to make you into a white, great white shark, that something has been able to become top of the food chain, so to speak, from a more elegant, functional disposition. You're doing the brain thing rather than the brawn thing. That's not nature's usual solution. Anyway, so the question would be, though, do we agree on the premises? You talk as if we do. You're saying, okay, I'm accusing you of not getting it logically. Well, yeah, I'm just saying if you concede the premises, there's the logic points in one direction, and you're going to bring up extreme cases, okay? Like as if somebody, like again, because I say that this is fundamentally how it works, then you're going to the extreme of that fundamental and saying, well, that extreme is not going to be sellable to the masses. Well, I don't have to sell the extreme to the masses. I just have to sell something else to them. Okay, they don't have to get the principle as hard and cold as you can make it. They just have to get it in terms of the fact that it's broken. It's like you don't have to give them the worst case scenario of a nuclear disaster for them to understand, the 1 in a million or a 1 in a billion scenario. You just have to give them the 1 in 50,000 scenario. And that's going to be enough. All right, well, anyway. So then you did the, again, we're going to talk about the emotionalism of the philosophy, and somehow it's, you're using this rhetoric as a way of, in some way, degrading it, calling it a bias. You even said that word, a cognitive bias. I say bullshit to that shit. That's another one of these cheap maneuvers. This is a cheap distraction. It's not your obligation to characterize whether somebody's emotional or not. Make a counter argument to what they're saying or not. Okay, but this emotional crap is just bullshit, because every subject in which there is something at stake that is of value is going to be emotional. There's no way to avoid that. if you're going to have a meaningful conversation about something that actually means something, that means something important is at stake. The future of something's welfare as it's at stake. And if you can't be emotional about that, or you're not going to be emotional about that, then I'm going to say you're going to be unprepared for the conversation, because I'm going to say you have an abnormal psychology. All right? I mean, if you can sit there and have a comfortable conversation, unemotional conversation about, let's say, cancer treatment for 6-year-olds, and putting a limitation on how much money you're going to spend on the 6-year-olds, or some other, who could have that as an unemotional conversation? You might need to have the logical conversation about cost and benefit and all this stuff, but it's certainly not going to be an unemotional conversation. There's no way you're going to be able to evaluate the pros and cons without having emotional reactions all over the fucking place as you contemplate this horrible circumstance you have to deal with. Or if you have a victim in an earthquake, right, and their foot is trapped, and you have to make this decision because you hear the metal cracking. You don't know when the metal's going to give way. You don't know what's going to happen, but you're saying, do I have time to try to work their foot out, or do I have to just cut their foot off? Yeah, you're going to have an emotional reaction, aren't you? Yeah, I would imagine you're going to have an emotional reaction because the welfare of something is at stake. I've made it about as clear as I can that from my perspective, you insidious, sadistic monsters intend to perpetuate billions of lives, trillions maybe, of mammalian sentient lives. You intend to grind up in your gristmill, okay, for no good reason, just because you have a silly notion in your head. And you're telling me I shouldn't be emotional. You're going to torture billions of sentient creatures with an arrogant obnoxiousness. Well, we've done it for thousands of years, why shouldn't we continue to do it? Or some kind of crap like that. And you're expecting me not to have an emotional reaction. Frankly, you're lucky. Because if I wasn't as disciplined as I am, and as loving of the academicness of a conversation, of getting to the truth, yeah, if I was going to just react as I should, yeah, I shouldn't even be having the conversation, right? I should just be emotionally reacting because it's disgusting, and your defense of it is revolting, and that would be my visceral reaction. I think it's disgusting that you people talk so academically about the torture you're going to impose in the future. It's a guarantee. It's going to happen. Let's not pretend this is about some little kitty, okay? This isn't the little kitty scenario. One little cat for the whole human race. That's not what's at the stake here, and you goddamn know it, okay? You're going to torture billions, all right? That's what's at stake. Billions of sentient lives, all right? So don't pretend to me because I'm telling you that the bottom line is you can't defend even one little kitten. Don't tell me that that's the argument I'm making. I'm making the argument that that's the truth, but this is the evidence is you're not even come close to one little kitten. You're not even close to that extreme. And yet here you are pretending to argue from that extreme, and you're not saying that's not obnoxious. You're just negated the existence of billions of people that you're going to torture and turn them into a little kitten to make your argument. You're just denied the practical fact that you're never going to get to a world where you only torture one little kitten to have your stupid goddamn cake. You're gonna, your stupid future, or your stupid fucking intellectualism, or your stupid entertainment, your stupid bullshit, the stupid delusions in your fucking head. You're never going to get to a point where you have your silly delusions, okay, only at the cost of a little tiny kitten going meow meow. That's never going to be the cost for this nonsense. The cost is going to be grotesquely huge compared to that. Times the speed of light squared in volume is going to be the price for your silly delusion. So don't pretend the argument's about the abstraction taken to its furthest permutation to use that argument in the circumstance you're in, which is you're never going to get to that perfect circumstance. Anyway, I mean, that's just bullshit. Alright, anyway, moving on. So yeah, I want to get on. I mean, it's as pointless as calling somebody an optimist or a pessimist. It's totally corrosive to the conversation. So if you want to play the game of emotionalizing this, then I will just keep calling you a sadistic motherfucker. Alright, so you may call me emotional, I'll call you a sadistic fuckhead. An asshole. Okay, an insensitive, fucking sociopath. How's that? Alright? I mean, if that's the route you want to take, is characterizing each other instead of characterizing the quality of the intellectual position. It is somehow your intellectual position that conscious human life is a good thing. Okay, now your evidence for that is your testimony. And I'm testifying that in my entire life I have not missed the Martians. You want to explain why I haven't? My entire life I have not missed the Plutonians. You want to explain why I haven't? Why haven't all these other intellectual cultures that could have existed? Why? And I can make them, in my imagination, I can make them 10 times as smart as you. And I can make their dicks bigger, and I can make all kinds of things about them so cool. And I'm still not missing them. Why is that? Oh, that's right, because they don't have any use, they don't have any function, they don't do anything good. Okay, them eating cake and being happy doesn't mean anything. Okay, they don't need to exist, and we don't need it either. If the Martians existed and they saw us sitting here, they wouldn't find us very impressive. That's certainly a possible scenario. Anyway, so you use the term, which this is a quote from you, never know that bliss. That was the kitty argument you made. Right now, there's zillions of Martians. They'll never know that bliss. Are you telling me you have any sincere emotional response to that? Any at all? I mean, I miss my fingernails when I cut them. The little leavings, and I miss them more than I miss the Martians. I mean, it's a hair I pluck off my ass. I'm going to be more impressed. I might put that in a little box and save it before I'm going to worry about the Martians not existing. Alright, anyway. Not having their bliss. Anyway. Alright, then you keep dragging this thing up where I've used this term where I need a half an hour to convince most people. And right, exactly. The point is, my argument is to convince most people. Obviously, you can't convince nihilist Nietzsche morons of anything. And even Kantians, okay? You people have so convoluted your thinking that, yeah, maybe nobody could ever convince you of anything because you've evaporated all meaning, okay? You think life is some sort of abstraction. You can't even concede consciousness exists. You don't even know what programming is as a concept or a word. You're still pretending there's some kind of possibility of some kind of free something. I mean, not that you're doing that, but it's out there. So yeah, there's a percentage of intellectuals that are have made themselves impervious to logic because they're pretending nothing matters and they're pretending everything's an abstraction, and they're just insane. I mean, there's no other word for it. They're completely detached from reality because they're negating the existence of energy and matter and the fact that in this configuration it creates consciousness. Yeah, they just negated it, and that's just bullshit. So yeah, you're not going to convince them of anything, but I'm just saying if the average person has it thrown at them right and hard about the truth of evolution and the truth of the implications of that fact of evolution, yeah, I think I can get them to pause, at least that much, and say, maybe I have to think about this a little more. Maybe this Santa Claus nonsense and this Jeebus crap, maybe this isn't the right answer. Anyway, then it somehow was related to the asymmetry, but that's more about the kitten thing. So look, the asymmetry is a fact, okay? It's just a fact that the need only exists in your perception. So this is like an addiction syndrome. So the fact is that your pleasures and your joys have no real frickin' value. They only have value from your relative position. You've only known the burden of consciousness. You haven't known the burden of bliss All right, and so when you're restored to your original state, you think it's some sort of special state. No, you've just removed your negatives, and that's why you feel bliss. It's because you've gotten rid of the burden of consciousness and the game that the DNA molecule is playing with you. So as much as you think it's valuable, it has no value, and you don't even have the right to torture a kitty to make 1,000,000,000 of it, or 1,000,000,000,000 of it, or 1,000,000,000,000 of it. And even that nonsense can make the thing quite obvious. Quite obviously, people don't think, oh, we need to make the whole universe human. Because look at all the bliss that could be experienced, all the human bliss that could be experienced if we just turn all the matter into the universe into fucking humans. I mean, nobody thinks that. And nobody thinks it because that is revealing of the truth, which is that we don't have any value, that our feelings don't have any value. The only thing that has value is the tensions and the negatives that we're attempting to get free of. The burden is built by the cage we create, and freedom is breaking the cage, getting free of the burdens of consciousness. And that's the truth. So the asymmetry is fact. It's just not intuitive. It's just not a fun fact, because people want to think in terms of good and bad. They don't want to think in terms of bad and less bad. That's not as much fun, is it? Bad and less bad isn't as much fun as thinking about good, bad, and good. Yeah. So they want to pretend there's an absolute good, and the only good you can make is to get rid of a bad. It's just the truth. Anyway, so yeah, and again, to make my argument, I don't need to go to the 99.99% extreme. I don't need to resort to one kitty for a billion humans kind of ratios. You know you're never going to get to that kind of world. We know how expensive a human being is right now. Right now, every breath you take is made out of a ton of sentient life, right now suffering a horrible death. Every breath you take, it's happening. Every fucking breath you take. So it's not about a cute kitty bullshit. It's one kitten worth of suffering. There's gallons and buckets. The 99.99% is what I'm arguing, not the 0.001% of the argument. And it's just bullshit to go there to make your argument. I mean, you can do it. I'll challenge it just by saying that yes, absolutely, it's true. I would stop you from torturing a kitty to have a kid. I would. Yeah, I would. I don't think you have a right. So let's see. We are nowhere close to. Okay, that's it. Yeah. Infinite suffering. So you reversed it. Instead of making it no value to the good, which is no value to your Red Sox winning the World Series bullshit that you assholes live for. Your cheap, idiotic thrills. Instead of accepting that argument that has no value, you've decided to pervert it and say, I'm saying suffering has infinite value. No, I'm saying, okay, that your joy, your happiness, your comfort has no positive good. It only is a consequence of you going from a bad state to a less bad state. It's an elevation of your condition, okay? From a less state, from a lesser state. You went from less, from lesser. All you did was elevate a negative, okay? You didn't create a positive, and you want to pretend you do, and so you want to pervert the argument and say I'm saying it's infinite suffering. No, but go ahead. I don't care if that's the game you want to play. I'm just going to call you on it every time you do it. I think it's bullshit. What I've clearly said in videos over and over again is the word zero sum. Fact is, if you played the game perfectly, you're zero. You got nowhere, but at least you didn't lose anything. And we're nowhere even close to playing the game perfectly, so it's not really a relevant argument, but it's just the damn truth that even if you create a perfect world, you wouldn't be doing anything that mattered. you just wouldn't be a problem anymore. Yeah, and you're a big problem now, in spite of your pretense that you're so much better than the rats. No, you're not. Yeah, you're squandering suffering just as much as they are. Anyway, till the next edition, I'll watch the second half and such.